Bernie Sanders proposed a new tax on billionaires' profits during the pandemic, so the propagandists over at Fox Business scrambled to defend them.
Bernie Sanders going after the wealthy again. He wants to take back the money they made during the pandemic. Lauren, who's he targeting? He's not
being subtle. He's calling this legislation the Make Billionaires Pay Act. And it would take billions from the executives of our biggest and most popular companies. He's imposing a 60% tax on what they gained between March 18th and January 1st of 2021, meaning the wealth that they amassed during the pandemic will face a one-time tax. Proceeds would be used to pay for Americans' healthcare bills for 1 year. So for Amazon's Jeff Bezos, that tax would be $42.8 billion. For Tesla's Elon Musk, that tax would be $27.5 billion. And let's take a look at Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, $22.8 billion. And finally, you like Walmart, you go there for good prices. Well, the Walton family, $12.9 billion. So these numbers are outrageous. And what's shocking is it just includes their wealth through August 5th. The Sanders plan wants to tax them through the end of the year. It's a tax on their success. 467 billionaires would be hit by it.
You know, Lauren, the bottom line is nobody's going to shed any tears about these guys losing some extra billions, but it doesn't work. Wealth taxes have been tried all over the world, and in the overwhelming cases, the countries that started wealth taxes withdrew them because people can move capital. People are not, these billionaires didn't get rich by being dumb. They're smart. They know how to move their capital out of the country that's overtaxing them, and that's exactly what would happen here.
And it makes the assumption that they're not generous enough as it is, that they don't pour their money and their time into their companies and their workers and to charity in general.
Well, and again, nobody's going to lose any sleep worrying about a billionaire if they have a couple of billion less. But the bottom line is it just doesn't work. It's simple math. Yeah. That's why countries have gotten rid of it. All right, Lauren, thank you very much.
Slob on those billionaire knobs. Keep going. Oh, this is so sad. How cucked do you have to be to the status quo to make some of these pathetic arguments that they made? I love the argument of like, wealth taxes don't work because like billionaires are going to hide the money, bro. They already tried to hide the money. They already tried to hide the money without the wealth taxes in place. Have you heard of tax havens? You know, when you dodge taxes, it's called tax avoidance, and you go to jail. When they do it, it's called using a tax haven. Their money's in the Cayman Islands. So they already try to hide the money. That's just an argument to enforce the rules better. Do you not understand that? You can't say like, oh man, if you do wealth taxes, they're going to try to like get around them. Okay. Then you better make sure you craft an airtight law with no loopholes and you actually enforce it. Oh my God. This is the only issue where we talk about it and just sort of grandfather in the cheating. It's like, well, obviously they're going to try to cheat the law, so why do the law? Or we try to stop the cheating! Get rid of the loopholes! There are ways to do it. It's just, you have to have the intent of leaving no loopholes. There were so many moments there that were just incredible. There's one moment where the host says, these numbers are outrageous. If you're saying the numbers are outrageous, then it is also outrageous that they made that amount of money during the pandemic in the first place. You can't say these numbers are outrageous and only mean it in the sense that, wow, it's a really high tax bill. Because if you're saying it's a really high tax bill, you're also saying it's a large amount of money that they made during the pandemic when everybody else is getting crushed. Guys, I told you the numbers. I'll tell you again. In West Virginia, it's nearly 60% of people that can't pay the rent. 55% in Tennessee. In the entire country, we're looking at like 32, 33% at the moment. There's not a single state where it's fewer than 20% of people. So, guys, we're talking about an eviction crisis a foreclosure crisis, a homelessness crisis. This is the worst since the Great Depression. And they're rushing to protect the profits of billionaires during the pandemic. By the way, they literally wouldn't even feel it. If you do Bernie's tax year, 60% tax on money made during the pandemic from the billionaires. If you do Bernie's tax, they wouldn't even feel it. And he said, let's take that money and use it to pay Americans' healthcare bills during the pandemic. Can you imagine the good that this would do? But then Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos would just move elsewhere so they don't have to pay the tax bill. That's what would happen. How about we make it so that in order to get access to U.S. markets, you have to pay those taxes? What are they going to do? They're going to say, fine, I'll tap out of, the U.S. market. No, because there's too much opportunity there. Even with paying a high tax bill, you're financially incentivized to stay there. So that's not all the arguments are just propaganda. It's just let the billionaires get away with anything and, forget the American people. By the way, this shows you who their audience is, right? Their audience is very wealthy people watching this show. Because, average people are going to watch that, even if they're Republicans, they're going to watch that and be like, I do have a healthcare bill I can't pay. And that person made how many billions during the pandemic? And if we tax them at 60%, they're not even going to feel it? I don't see a downside. I don't see a downside here. I think this is a pretty important and obvious thing. So, I'm just amazed at how lazy their arguments are and how they're always they can't help themselves. It's always just a rush to defend the status quo. But guys, it's not a meritocracy. It's not like the reason why these billionaires are making so much money during this pandemic is that they just work that much harder than you. They're just that much better people than you are. That's not true. People are getting destroyed during this pandemic. These are people who've been laid off from jobs. They didn't wake up the next day and become incredibly lazy and say, I'm going to sit on my couch all the time now. No, they were laid off because of the economy, because of the pandemic. So they still want to work. They still are deserving people. And, according to Fox News and Fox Business Network, they look at the state of affairs and they go, no, let the billionaires make so much more money as people in this country can't even pay their rent. Can't pay their rent, can't pay their healthcare bills, losing their jobs. People who are keeping their jobs, many of them are taking 20%, 30% pay cuts. Look at the carnage in our economy. And you know what? I think it's totally fine. I think it's fine. And I think the billionaires should keep all the wealth. And just wait for it, because there will come a day when Jeff Bezos becomes a trillionaire. A trillionaire. And when that day comes, they'll all be totally fine with it. And they'll argue that it's a good thing. And he just worked that much harder than everybody else. That's why. That's why he's in this position. It's because he worked that much harder than you. And it's a fair system. And he's worth $1 trillion in net worth. And you're worth 22 grand in net worth. This is the way a lot of these people think. They've really been brainwashed to believe that your market value is the same as your human value. So Jeff Bezos having that much money just means he's that much more productive and that much more intelligent and that much more moral of a person than you are. It's beyond ridiculous. But they give away the game here when they attack a simple, straightforward, intelligent idea like Bernie's plan.